Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started with the second half of our show here today. I'd like to say a big special shout out to this session dedicated to Roll20Con, which is going on currently right now. I'd like to ask that all the support that you would normally give to the stream goes to the great people over at Cybersmile HQ today. You can go to the link that I will post right here. It is Roll20Con. Go to that link right there. Please click the donate button. They're a great charity. They host Roll20Con. If you guys don't know what Roll20Con is, basically it's an amazing group of people who run this wonderful website that we utilize. Host a charity event called Roll20Con online every year where they get a bunch of the marketplace creators, they get a bunch of the streamers, they get a bunch of the big high-level guys, much higher than us, that actually use, webcams and stuff, and they do a bunch of great, awesome shows and raise a bunch of money for Cybersmile, which is a great charity that dedicates helping the victims of cyberbullying and hoping to eliminate that within the world today. Quite a daunting task, and so they deserve all the support and help that we can give them. So I ask that you do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's it. I'm going to say it one more after the show. That's all we're going to do. Let's jump back into it here and see what's going on with the group.
Apparently might be too high.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
What's too high?
I'm using a squeak on my chair to determine my input sensitivity.
Yeah, you've been pretty sensitive all show.
Yeah, I turned off the automatic activity thing because apparently it's not tracking things correctly.
I actually had to do that as well because I had the opposite problem. Mine
It
was
would just stop working.
Yeah, mine was not sensitive enough, and sometimes if I would talk quiet like this, it wouldn't go across. And so, like, when I was trying to do voices and stuff, sometimes I would just cut out. So I actually had to turn it more sensitive. So it seems like the auto detect sensitivity is not the greatest on Discord. Still the best chat client I've ever used, though, to be perfectly honest. Blows everything else out of the water. TeamSpeak or Ventrilo. Jesus, you guys remember Ventrilo?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
And it's
God.
free. And they're gonna add video.
Right, exactly. They're gonna add video, which is great. And a whole bunch of other stuff too. Like that's not even like the primary feature that they're going to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and God forbid Skype.
Oh, don't even speak its name.
I've never used Skype as anything other than Skype.
Yeah.
Like to say hello to people that don't want to make phone calls.
There was a very brief moment where Skype was the primary chat client for this, and then we didn't do that anymore. That's basically my story, and I'm done with it. Will, are you here? Okay, good. You just unmuted.
Hello.
Okay, good. Fantastic. Good timing, Will. Congratulations.
See? Perfect.
So the first and possibly most important question that I need to ask for right now is what are everyone's tasks throughout the transition period? Obviously, Gogo and Dr. Fisher spend a lot of time in the med bay doing a whole bunch of research, but what about everybody else?
Fortune is interested in trying to find somewhere to download some armorer classes as well. That's my first question, is how many rolls do you want me to make to get to my thing, or do I have to make rolls for this?
So you want to do research roll, and this is going to be -1 to 0, right?
Correct.
You don't need to make any rolls for -1 to 0.
Sweet.
Because that is a basic understanding of how things work. It's like, you know roughly how to build a computer, right?
Yeah.
So you have a 0 in the
Okay.
profession computer builder skill.
Then I am downloading an online armorer's class.
Exactly. That's the equivalent. Higher than this, I'll probably say twice whatever you want the skill level to become. So to go from 0 to 1, you need to make 2 successful rolls. To go from 1 to 2, you'll need to make 4 successful rolls.
Sweet.
And I think that it is only appropriate that every single one of those rolls is just the profession skill with intelligence.
Okay.
Just to kind of, gather the information and do it. Maybe, actually, you know what? Maybe I should split those in half, because you need to have practical knowledge, too. So
Yeah.
one within half of the skill checks will be with intelligence, and half of them will be with dexterity. How's that?
Sounds
and then we'll
fantastic.
determine the difficulty based on what level it's going to be. I'll figure that out when we get there. Sound good?
Yeah, it might be a while before I get above 0. So.
Right, and also understand that you still have to spend the points.
Yeah,
It's not just your get out of skills free card. Although that's an interesting concept to think about. I might mull that over, actually. But anyway, back to it. Oscar, what about you? I know that you had some things that you've messaged me over the course of the week that you were interested in perhaps pursuing or looking into during some downtime.
Yep.
So,
Sure did. Where would I find Oha?
So I think that depends. I think that Oha does quite a bit more moving about the ship this particular transition than usual. In fact,
roll like a 1d6 or something.
well, I think let me describe what Oha is doing, and like if you still want to catch her like in her quarters, you can do that. Obviously, just go during a downtime, and she'll be in there. You can kind of meet her wherever you want, but I think it is important to describe what she's doing because perhaps you encounter this, like you go looking for her and you see that this is happening. As we described, Gogo and Dr. Fisher, you guys are spending a lot of time in the med bay, and I think that this is not lost upon the rest of the crew. Obviously, it's normal for Dr. Fisher to be in there, but it is abnormal for there not to be very loud jazz metal coming from the underneath of Gogo's door. And that is notoriously absent, I think, for most of this 3 days. And so I think...
Dr. Fisher won't allow it in the lab.
I know. He appreciates it, but not while he's working.
Such a jerk.
So I think that it's fairly obvious when you are spending a lot of time not in your normal place, right? And I think the two people that are perhaps most attentive of this are Chan, obviously. Chan is probably constantly, like, asking you guys if you need anything, doing the same stuff that he would do to you, Gogo, that you're used to and probably just shrug off. But I think it is important to note that for you, Dr. Fisher, this is a level of attention bordering on obsession. It is perhaps like every hour on the hour, you can pretty much set your clock by it. Chan arrives at wherever Gogo is. You all might be in the cafeteria getting something to drink or, somewhere else. But since this is probably the most amount of static period of time you've spent with Gogo, Chan is there every hour. And I think that to the point of sometimes he doesn't ask for things, sometimes he brings things that he knows Gogo would expect. And I think that Gogo, try as you might to have avoided this, you also kind of gave up a couple of times trying to break some of these habits. Because it was almost unavoidable. Like you would
Baby
tell,
steps.
you would tell Chan not to bring you tea at exactly 5 p.m. and then you would just find it wherever you were going at 5 p.m. waiting for you instead of him actually bringing it to you, right? Like, and then eventually you were just like, okay, fine, Jesus, bring me tea, it's fine. And so like there's these little things that Gogo probably ignores at this point, but Dr. Fisher, you are not used to it, and also you are being lumped into it because you are in her presence a lot more. And then, in addition to that, I think it is important to note that...
He's overseer by association.
Correct. Yes. Absolutely. Because, back on Paphos, he might actually be a courtier, or perhaps a love interest of the overseer. And so he deserves to be catered to equally as much. He holds a position high. Well, in Chan's mind, everyone on the ship holds a position higher than him. But Dr. Fisher is not only the newest crew member, but the least known to Chan. And so I think that Gogo spending so much time with him has elevated him to that by association standard that we would come to expect from something like that. So Dr. Fisher, say what you might of that. I'm sure we can deal with that in a moment. But I think that notably... and Gogo, you would obviously recognize this too, there are far more times, too, when Oha is either in Chan's accompaniment or also performs a similar action where, like, she'll see the two of you through, like, the glass doors of the medbay, like, working, and then we'll probably get a scene of, like, she sees the two of you and she, like, walks by, and then the two of you are, like, studiously working, and then we see her stop, we see her, like, pull out her combat and look at the time, and then, like, look back inside the medbay, and then walk off and then come back with coffee or something, like, a little bit later, and just kind of, like, set it down and then leave again without kind of saying anything unless she's addressed. I wouldn't say doting or motherly, but just, like, kind of casually friendly with the two of you. Which is perhaps notably different than what is normal. Or what you've been used to the past couple of weeks that she's been on board. So, knowing that, Oscar, you can still catch her wherever she wants, but you perhaps pick up on that as well. If you're, like, specifically going to look for her, maybe you find her in the cafeteria making coffee for Dr. Fisher and Gogo, right? Like, maybe that's where you see her. Or maybe, like, in fact, even perhaps scarier, maybe you're looking around, you can't find her, and then you walk into engineering and her and Chan are having a conversation. Or maybe she's actually in the medbay with the other two. You know, maybe just, like, kind of observing and seeing what's going on, or, you know, something.
Yeah, I think the cafeteria is the great equalizer on the ship.
Always.
So
as it should be on any ship, if we're being honest.
Right. If you are there, it's expected that you are present because you don't mind interacting or
you don't mind
social
interaction. Right. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I think at least in passing, like, maybe he doesn't make a big deal of it, but at least initially he would say, you know, do you have a moment?
Yeah, and I think she's probably, like, leaning up against next to the coffee, like, leaning against the counter next to the coffee pot, like, just, like, flipping through her compad, and she kind of, like, looks up, and she, like, closes it, and she puts it in her pocket, and she says, "Yes, what do you need, Uskurnt?"
Just something you said a while back about my trainer, the one whose quarters you took.
Yes, you did mention that he was a trainer of some sorts.
The of sorts part is what is growing to concern me. He was sent by someone who I've come to trust, but I don't necessarily... Well, I knew nothing about him prior to the training. You said something about... something questioning his intent.
Well, first of all, I must say that if you are dealing with people and I think you get air quote smell, trust.
Yeah.
That's the new arched eyebrow smell, by the way, in case anyone was curious. If you are dealing so closely with people you trust, then perhaps we need to reevaluate who you are dealing with, but you understand that my abilities work a little bit differently than you would imagine. Or at least that you perhaps were taught. You went to the School of Mind, did you not?
Oscar nod.
Yes, well,
yeah.
Perhaps, certainly not there they would teach it. It is an obscure variation of, well, the only way to describe it is empathy, perhaps? There are some annals in the records in School of Body that states that there is essence that flows between those of us that have MES. In particular, these can be stronger with the Sriek people, but humans are definitely capable of exerting such strong signs as to leave well, not a trail, but markers, a piece of them behind, especially when they are intent to use powerful psychic energies in certain areas. My type of power is being able to read these. It's not dissimilar to how we would understand telepathy or even precognition, but it is different.
And the piece he left behind concerns you.
Do you know... Well... And I think she kind of, chuckle laughs to herself, as if she was about to ask a stupid question, and she goes, well, of course you do. That sickly sweet smell of a Sriek's final emotion.
Final.
Yes. When we die, or when we are killed, that, be it fear or surprise, perhaps, but there is a tone to it, yes? You have encountered it before, I am sure. What she's describing is basically what deer do,
no,
right?
He agrees. He nods in agreement.
Yeah, and I think she says, it was like that, but different. More human. As we know, they all have their own set of smells that I am surprised they do not communicate even stronger than we do in them, because they are quite potent. But...
Fortune in particular.
Yes, well, I will be
resent that.
I will be having a conversation with him about hygiene as soon as we are
He
acquainted.
he does clean up well. We need to give him more occasion to do so.
Yes, well, if he is to be in this company for much longer, I think that we will certainly have to have a talk. But that is beyond the point. Regardless, it was similar to that of a dying man, but tainted in some way, disfigured, as if death walked upon him. It was an uneasy feeling, certainly, and fleeting. It has since passed, of course. It was only recently here when I first arrived.
He was downright ancient when he came aboard, but it doesn't... What you're saying sounds more complicated than that.
If I had to describe it, it's almost if he... one who walked with death upon his hands, not in his soul.
Do you think he had ill intent? Or...
I think she just shrugs and she says, I cannot say. Without having met and interacted with the man, it would be hard. But I certainly think that whatever that individual had experienced in his life, it was far more than you or I ever will. Or perhaps far more than you or I care to. And that is saying something for us, is it not?
He actually chuckles at that, and he says, it is saying quite a lot, indeed. I will think on what you've said. So long as you don't expect he's done anything malicious in training me.
No, I think you get smug just fills the cafeteria as she says, no, your training was quite well done. I'm sure that you were able to stop whatever abilities may come to harm you.
Fortune probably walks through at that time and like, man, what smells in here?
Yeah.
Walk off.
Do we get like the sitcom like? Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
pretty much.
Says yeah. So Oscar, I don't know that he's gonna let that one go. I think he says, dude, are you suspect of my qualifications, or simply do you think that you are above them inherently?
I think she probably considers for a moment and says, I am no master of metapsionics. I am certain that you are far more powerful than I in that realm. But know this, do not make assumptions of what I am capable of, and I will try not to make assumptions of what you are capable of.
He says, don't get me wrong. I simply, just a question. If anything, well, you haven't left yet.
Yeah, and I think
Perhaps it's time to figure out how we can both work together most effectively.
Yeah, and I think she turns her back and she pours the 2 cups of coffee, one for Dr. Fisher and Gogo, and she picks them up and she probably walks by and then like turns and looks at you and she says, yes, and perhaps you will stop holding back information as to why you so urgently need to see me at all odd hours of the day. You know, I do carry a compad. And then I think she just like walks out the door.
Uh-huh. Good to know.
Yeah. She gave it to you, but she didn't want to give you the satisfaction, is basically what was going on there, right?
She missed out. Could have seen some cool holographic.
Yeah, she could have. So, I do want to know if Dr. Fisher makes any comments about Chan's behavior, though. Because that's probably the one aspect of this whole thing, Dr. Fisher, that is a missing link for you, is Chan's social abilities. Obviously, you know his physical capabilities innately, right? Like, that's something you've been studying forever, but you probably don't have a ton of interaction with him. You guys are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, and both of you are always constantly busy because he's the only engineer / mechanic kind of on the ship. And you being the only doctor / scientist kind of on the ship.
Yeah, I think what I take away is that despite him having such a ridiculously poor vocabulary and
It's not that his vocabulary is small. He's actually got a great
no.
vocabulary. It's just that he uses words improperly.
yeah, that's kind of what I mean. But
Yeah.
despite
The comprehension.
he also has a great intuition on kind of timings, just work ethic.
Yeah, and I think that over the course of the 3 days as well, you're almost certain he begins to predict what you want. Like,
Yeah.
you might be like sitting there and like, man, I could really use some tea with like, you know, a little bit of sugar. And like, not 10 minutes later, Chan enters, and it's like the perfect amount for you. And it's like, it's that double take moment of like, wait, like is he reading my mind? Which obviously he's not, maybe. But yeah, there's definitely a moment there where you're like, oh my god, this is like, either this is amazing or this is highly concerning, whichever one you want to go with. And again, I think that also distinctively, Gogo ignores it. Like, Gogo has dealt with this for months and is second nature to her at this point.
Gogo, is Chan always like this?
Oh, always like what? Oh, has something happened? Do you notice something different about his health? Is everything okay?
No, merely his surprisingly efficient work ethic in how he serves.
Oh no, that's I mean that's just Chan, right?
I know I am not the most explored man, but this is certainly by far the most intense working I've seen in servitude of someone.
So when you say servitude,
Yeah, totally.
you get fucking ice cold from Gogo, and she's like, "Well, you know what? Nobody asked your opinion, Dr. Fisher. You know what? I'm gonna take this to my room." And she literally grabs her stuff and starts to like storm out.
What did I say wrong? What?
Shh, door closes.
Yeah. Yeah, she leaves you to it. Where do you go after that, Gogo? Do you go to your room and?
Yeah, well, I think it probably was about time when Shan was going to bring her something, and he didn't because she probably left, and he brought it to the med bay instead. So she'd probably go to the cafeteria and probably at that moment see Oha walking out.
Right.
That
yeah.
weird passing of the guard kind of a thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think she would actually go up to her and she'd probably be like, "Are you going to drink both of those?"
And I think she and Oscar, you're kind of like sitting there too, like as she's like maybe you hear the conversation in the hallway, and Oha just goes, "Oh no, one was for you. Chen mentioned that he had to get some work done today and said that this is around the time that you like some tea. I figured since he was unable, and I'm not doing much of anything useful here."
She like snatches it out of her hand. She takes a big sip and she's like, "That's oddly cordial of you."
Well, if there's one thing I hate, it's being useless. Kind of like tossing that word over her shoulder.
Sure. Well, thanks for the tea. I'm kind of busy.
Yes, of course. She kind of like sidesteps so you can walk by her. Again, she's also like 7 feet tall, so
Yeah.
she sidesteps and like ducks down so you can slide by her.
Yeah, and I think that you see that
If
like
Gogo was a foot shorter, she could walk underneath her.
Basically.
Yeah. That makes me laugh.
You could probably limbo underneath her. That's probably
Yeah.
a thing you could do.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, but she does that like movie thing where like, she stops in the hallway, mid-hallway, and kind of like looks over her shoulder at her like, there's something fishy going on there. But
Okay.
I'm busy, so, and she just kind of like keeps going forward.
I'm busy being angry. I need to go be
Yeah,
angry
yeah.
somewhere.
Basically, that is basically her teenage reaction to what is occurring, yes.
Yeah, I need to go be angry somewhere else.
God, nobody understands me. God.
The teen angst is just real right now. So I think that Oha probably shows up at the med bay with one tea in hand, Dr. Fisher, and probably like knocks you out of whatever stupor you might have been in or whatever. And she probably like sets it down, and that's when like maybe you do whatever, and she probably like looks around. She's like, "Is this?" Gogo seemed to be in a hurry. Something happened. She seemed upset.
We were mainly talking about Chan's work ethic.
Well, of course. He's a Paphosian male, is he not?
I mean, I haven't spent much time that part of the galaxy, I'm afraid, so is every single one of them like Chan?
Oh no, I would say he is vastly different. Far more independent, certainly. I would even say different altogether. If one didn't know, he probably would say that he was not a very good Puffosian male, if you understand where I'm going.
Yes, of course. Doesn't quite know.
Roll a mental effect save. Perfect. And I think that, like, she probably, like, looks around, and then all of a sudden she looks at you and she's like, oh my god, you actually don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean, aren't they just regular slaves with a bit of drug control?
Oh, well, yes, certainly, but, well, I don't know if you could call anything about that situation regular. That certainly seems to be incorrect, but from what I have gathered, there are very few cases of a liberation, we'll say, of the Puffosian male. An interesting, well, let's call it a species. Did you know that they are bred to be extremely physical fit? Specific genetic traits are weeded out throughout their lineage. In fact, when they are bought and sold, that it is not unlike, well, I don't know if the Euripylosians have anything about it, but on Raimondi we have these large beasts that we use for racing or for shows and such. Large reptilian creatures. It kind of breaks down in the middle there, but what I'm getting at is, from the looks of Chan, he is, well, a prize-winning Rachnaal. And he is far from his homeland, and certainly not in the care of an overseer. I think that, from what I've gathered, he sees Gogo as this overseer, but one cannot break a bred-in trait as easily as simple words and a teaching of language. Do you understand, Dr. Fisher? There's a lot of investment that has to go into something like that, and the work will never be done.
I see. It is lots more in depth than I thought.
Yes, indeed. It would probably be assumed if a relationship like this had formed on Paphos that, well, either Gogo was a weak overseer, or that Chan was a particularly, well, I call it independent, as I've said, but they would call it disobedient there. Understand that service is a way of life for the Paphosian male, and, well, simply put, they will die if they cannot serve others. Quite literally, but I've noticed that seems a way of defeating this condition, at least. The one of death, I mean, has been overcome. That is an interesting and revelatory action you have taken, Dr. Fisher.
Well, it certainly wasn't easy work. I mean, it's hardly going to liberate the entire planet anytime soon. This strain was made merely for Chan's biostasis.
Yeah, and I think she kind of like nods and smiles, and she stands up and probably puts a hand on your shoulder, and she says, just understand that there was far more work put in to getting him to the state he is now prior to your revelation. More emotional than perhaps your science can explain. And we all know how easily emotions can be manipulated, Dr. Fisher. Do we not?
Indeed. Well, you have given me a lot to think about. Thank you, Oha.
Yes, no problem. Also, perhaps do not indicate Chan as a servant to Gogo any longer. And then I think she just, like, kind of leaves. And so now there might be two people reading your mind, Dr. Fisher.
Brilliant.
Well, there's definitely one. There might be two.
Cool. So, does anyone else have anything? Dr. Fisher, you do notice your rats are all gone. I don't know if you make any mention of that at any point. Or if it's one of those things like, you don't want to make mention of it?
Yeah, I mean, I was the first one to see if Chan would eat it, and I was away for a day, and now they're all gone. So I just take it as I need to get more rat this next stop.
Shane would probably prefer you get something more substantial, but I mean, rats will do in a pinch.
I do also need more rats.
Okay.
How else will I do my science?
True. The good news is, if Chan did eat them, which I'm not saying that's what happened, everyone, I'm not saying that's what happened. It's probably
We
Stanley.
don't actually know that that's what happened.
But if Chan did eat them all, he also is resistant to all diseases that you possibly could have put in them. So it's fine. Nothing's going to happen about that. Because, you know, he's technically dead. So, there you go. Okay.
How do you get more rats in space? Do you just, like...
You stick your hand out into the metadimensional waves of energy,
Yeah.
and then they just appear there. They might not always be
Energy
rats, though. They might be, you know, Lovecraftian horrors. That just might be what happens.
I'm just saying, like, if we're in drive space, we're talking about getting new rats. That seems unlikely.
I think Dr. Fisher means when
I was
we
told-
arrive.
When we
Yeah.
arrive, yes.
I don't know.
I mean, thankfully you don't need to get many, as rats obviously multiply like no one's business.
Yeah, you really have to discuss the finer points of, like, colony management with Chan, because you can't just eat all of them at once. You have to keep breeders, you know, just as a courtesy.
You know, to be fair, Chan is a very astute learner. He is willing to learn anything you want to teach him. It's all about teaching him. So, anyone else have anything they would like to do during the course of these 3 days?
No, I think Oscar did what he wanted to.
Okay.
During this jump.
Cool.
I'm ready
Awesome.
to go.
So,
Let's go deliver us some liquor. Or wait, no.
Nope.
The
Not
other package.
yes, correct.
Secret stuff.
So you pop into 0209, which, if we look at the sector guide here, is the Eschatarn system that has one inhabitable planet of Thune on it. Now, when I say inhabitable, I only kind of mean that. So Thune has an invasive and toxic atmosphere. This isn't like Raimondi, where just the rain is acidic. The entire place is unbreathable, and basically the people live in bubble cities on the planet's surface. The only reason to really go out onto the surface of Thune is for one of two reasons. One, you are going to work either at another city or at one of the, like, industrial plants somewhere, or two, you're racing. It's the only two reasons you ever go off outside of the bubble cities. It doesn't have that many inhabitants. It's only listed as hundreds of thousands. So there are probably like 4 or 5 major bubble cities scattered throughout the throughout the planet, with maybe some very, very rare occasion there's like a couple of more rural areas, like maybe some like research outpost somewhere, something like that. It is Tech Level 4 baseline post-tech, so anything that you would typically be able to find on a Tech Level 4 planet is here. But it is also listed as minimal contact, and what that can mean a couple of different things, as we've seen on some other planets here as well. But in Thune's case, it's mostly because they don't really give a shit about anybody else. They don't care about sector-wide politics. You grow up on Thune caring about one of two things. Either working to make a living or racing. Those are the two things you grow up loving or hating on Thune. And obviously not everyone in the sector shares those views. There are certainly a couple of other places where pod racing exists, but in particular, Thune is basically the Midwest of pod racing, if pod racing were equivalent to football in this scenario. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that analogy make sense to everybody except for Will?
You recognized I had zero idea what you were talking.
Will, it's like every Manchester United fan who ever lived, as opposed to like other football club fans.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Oh, perfect sense.
Okay, good. Good.
Packers.
Yeah. Again, even Chelsea fans aren't as bad. I think we can both agree on that. It's mostly just the United fans. See, I had an analogy for you too, Will.
Yeah. Thanks for being inclusive.
No problem, buddy. I try my darndest.
Oh, careful, I'm gonna get the warm fuzzies all
Oh
over.
god, no, not the warm fuzzies. Quick, I need to kill a PC. Oha!
Yeah.
Bullet to the head. Okay. Excellent. Oh god, that was close, guys. It was real close. So yeah, I think that basically describes the entire scenario for you that goes on Thune. The reasons to visit Thune are basically just to pod race. Or, like, visit family.
Man, if only we
maybe.
had a pod racer, that wasn't locked down in enemy space.
Right, and that probably also ties in with the minimal contact, because it's not necessarily minimal contact from the planet to outside. Nobody else outside of Thune really cares about Thune. So they don't really bring a whole lot of stuff besides, like, food and water to live on this extremely hostile atmosphere. That's basically it. That's basically all there is to Thune. Quite a bit simpler, I think, than most of our other planets, but that's for the better. It doesn't get bogged down in a lot of bullshit. So when you warp into the system, obviously we
do love our bullshit bogs in this game.
You do love your bullshit bogs.
We tend to find all of the good ones.
Yeah, true. I think that the initial concern when warping into the system, and I would assume, I think we've generally determined every time you guys finish drill space, everybody's in the cockpit or at their post, because it's the most dangerous portion of the drill. In addition, it's the most vulnerable that you guys are, and you need to be able to react to things that happen when that occurs.
Hence, jumping into a space battle.
Right, exactly. And so I think that there's that kind of anticipation of maybe having to do something, and when you pop in and the blackness of space kind of surrounds you, and it's not that weird, like, purplish, bluish color that drill space is, and you can just see the stars, and you can see, basically nothing around you, and scans go, you guys ping out scans, and you're searching, your sensors are operating at full capacity, Chan puts more power to them. Nothing is detected except for the distant ping of the exchange beacon, where you can refuel and do some minor trading and stuff like that, which I think is a relief to everyone.
Yeah, it's nice to come at a drive space and not have a lamprey of pirate ship attached to us, or be assaulted by an entire fleet, or just once in a while. That's pretty good.
Totally.
Um,
So yeah, you guys come in and everything appears to be correct. You can go fuel up. Obviously, I assume that's the first thing you do every time you basically get into a system, and then you can head off towards the. It's actually pretty close to the exchange fuel point because it's actually the 10th planet in the system. So it's actually not that far away from the exchange beacon, which is on the edge of the system, obviously. So
go. Do we do anything other than fuel up?
I mean, we got a package to drop off, do we not?
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
whole
we
reason for coming here.
Just saying. So we do that. We go fuel up,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then
And then you head off towards the planet. Now you were given the name of a contact, right, Fortune, for who you're supposed to deliver this to?
Let me check my notes, but I don't think so.
I think I said that that's all you were given, but I never actually gave you the name.
That might have been
I
a thing.
think that is actually what happened. So
All that I have written down is do not open.
right, exactly. So I think that you see that you are to deliver the package to a. So it's probably there's probably a company name. There's probably an address and a company name on. They probably call it Bubble City 1, right? On Thune.
Okay.
So Thune is also heavily Russian accented, just by the way.
Yeah.
And so you're given coordinates to Bubble City 1, and then is
Is
probably
that all one word? Because that would be great.
Yeah, probably. And Bubble City 1 is the incorrect pronunciation. It's probably Blessiteu or something weird like that.
That was definitely French, but okay.
I know. See, that's the point. It's fucky.
just like the French.
Wow.
I'm
Will,
half
any
French
comments?
Canadian. I can say whatever I please.
Okay. So I think that you're probably given the name of the location that you're supposed to go to is Sven's Emporium for for pod racing supplies and ancient artifacts. But obviously all of that translated into Russian.
Well,
Can
we
you give me
like
the
all
name
of
again?
those things.
Sven's Emporium for pod racing supplies and ancient artifacts.
SIPSA. Okay.
Exactly.
That's the acronym. SIPSA.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm not writing all that down.
So you head off in the direction of that go-go, and it takes again another 6 hours to kind of just because it takes 6 hours to putt anywhere in the system, but probably takes you closer to 3 or 4. And you roll up, and we see the greenish hue of the planet as we see it on the screen, and immediately I think what you take away if you've never been to Thune before is it appears the weather is fairly stormy, because it does have an atmosphere. It's just toxic, right? So there appear to be large cyclonic cloud formations that are rolling across at a very high rate of speed. Go, you would obviously know that these storms are kind of what the planetary racers, and I call them planetary racers because obviously there's multiple levels of what goes on here. What the planetary racers typically, it's what they have to deal with. Planetary racing is seen as much more technical, but much less skill-oriented. Or even strategy-oriented, because it's basically just, can you survive? Yes? Okay, you might win. So there's a little bit of luck there too, maybe. Whereas the spacefaring races are considered, much higher strategy. You have to like deal with the various changes in debris that orbits the planet, and so it's much more dangerous as well, because moving at the speeds that the spacefaring racers move, a single speck of debris in the wrong location can end a run almost instantaneously. So there's a couple of things there. There's a lot of different tactics that go into the spacefaring races too. Like, do we invest in like heavier plated armor, which is going to make us go slower, but is going to protect us from these? We can take more dangerous routes and shave time. Do we go for something fast but avoid the dangerous routes? Do we go for something nimble and just try to avoid the debris and various formations that might occur? There's also it's also not the cleanest of races. Sabotage is not quote unquote rampant, but obviously it happens, as Gogo can attest to.
Nah, really?
That's the first any of us have heard about that.
I know, right? Jeez.
But it's also it's kind of dog eat dog. Like, there are probably people who also put plating on their side panels so that they can nudge people and be a little bit safer and make them crash into debris and shit like that. And none of that is really considered illegal during a race. Obviously, the shit before the race is definitely illegal, and tampering is a serious crime, especially on Thune. But in general, they kind of just leave it for the track. And I think that as you're approaching Gogo, you receive a message.
Yes, go on.
And it is from the individual who you sent a message previously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it says, it probably says, "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I've just been terribly busy. I was wondering if you could meet me here. I'll be in Bubble City number 1. Around these dates. Hopefully, you'll be there as well. But I gotta run. I have this." And there's kind of like goes off into a detailed list of stuff that's mostly gibberish, and probably even you see like made up words for things. Clearly, like talking about
typical.
Like going and like spelunking in some of the graveyards, and the graveyards as they're called here. It's probably one of the ways to make like a decent buck is go to the graveyards where a lot of racers crash and scavenge the parts. And like you see like a made up word for like a piece of an engine, and you're like, that's not what it's called, but that's what this individual calls it.
He certainly has his own language. That's
Yes.
for sure. Great. Yeah, so I think Gogo hard rolls her eyes and just closes the message and starts to make her way in that, general vicinity.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, you guys are arriving at the edge of like the atmosphere, and the control towers send you a caution symbol to hold your position, because there's a race going on in your path. And I think that Gogo, obviously you comply with this, right?
Yeah, and I also respond in Russian
Yeah, totally.
with the correct,
Yeah, you have to relay
I
your
don't-
coordinates so that the coordinates
Yeah.
can be relayed to the teams, so that they know to avoid and see. And I think that this is the thing is like you've been in this situation before, but from the other side. Some racers will use an opportunity where like there's traffic coming in to their advantage. They may try and like buzz you so that other racers like to either shave off time or to like make you freak out and get in the way of other racers, or racers that are like in pursuit of them trying to eliminate them. They might, do the dodge the missile and make it crash into something else tactic.
Yeah, so I think Gogo stalls it completely, turns it completely like into the path of the racers.
Yeah.
And is just like, you guys are going to want to watch this. And like, pulls up all of the outside video comms.
Yeah, and you see all the videos like light up on all the comms, and I think that you like the group of you probably like look at each other and you're like, because there's nothing happening, right?
Yeah. It's like, what are we
Wait
watching?
And then-
for it.
Actually, I want the three of you to make me a perception check.
And like under her breath, Gogo's like, we'll see how good they are.
Yeah. Okay. Oscar's tracking. Based on wisdom, obviously. I'm sorry. Holy crap.
Wow,
Fortune's tracking.
double 11s.
I see a thing.
You see a couple of things. Dr. Fisher? Oh, wow.
Damn.
Okay.
Wow.
Everybody, we are frosty.
So,
today.
Gogo's a freaking open book today.
so I think what happens here is you just hear this single... and...
Go, are we on a racetrack?
Yeah, and
just watch.
Well, yeah, and so that's the front wave, right? And the group of you sees in a blink, and it happens fast, and you would have missed it if Gogo hadn't told you to like where to look. And Gogo, you probably like pointed out, you're like, they're coming from this. This is the heading they're coming from. And if you guys weren't told that, you wouldn't see anything. But you see these like black dots, and then they're on top of you, and then they're gone, like instantly. Fortune, you probably get like a small indicator symbol that denotes like inconsequential scratches to the outer hull along Cargo Bay 3, right? Like it's just like a notification like, hey, you might have been struck by a small asteroid while you were flying.
Something may have bumped you.
Right, exactly. It's like the check on this, but it's not serious.
Yeah.
And Gogo, you flip on the rear cameras, and you can see the group of you can see like burning and crashing and falling back down to the planet is clearly like a race pod of some sort. That the atmospheric, actually that's probably what they call them. They probably call them the atmospheric racers. The atmospheric racers, one of them is clearly crashed after barely scraping the hull. And you're pretty sure they were moving, God, maybe as fast as your ship could in space. But they're flying in atmosphere.
Nice.
At least sub spike drive, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can perceive them, so they're not
Right, exactly.
barely, and with guidance, but we can
Yes.
see them.
Exactly.
Go. You think we should probably move off the racetrack now?
I think you get the green symbol from
Yeah.
the control tower.
Gogo's like, yeah, we're good to go. And then she like kind of cackles as she like flips off the back cam as she like watches that one just tumble to Earth or
Yeah.
to the planet.
Yep.
Gogo, did I just watch? How many people did I just see die?
Gogo doesn't really respond to you.
There's just a
Doesn't press it
shrug.
further. Yeah. He's just watching the debris get taken into the atmosphere.
Yep. Yeah, it burns up a little because it was moving so fast.
Yep.
It's just a trail of black smoke that leads down and then descends below like the cloud layer.
Nice.
And so the group of you, and how this works is in the bubble cities, so there are a slew of docking ports that line the outside along the ground, if for ships that have like atmospheric configuration like yours does, and that's where you're directed. But also another option is there's a dome on top of the bubbles where larger ships that don't have atmospheric configuration can descend into and then enter into the atmosphere of the bubble, and then be able to like latch onto moorings that attach to the top of the bubble, and then they kind of like hang there. So it's this weird, like, almost Christmas tree-esque of, like, you see these ships inside the bubble that are, like, hanging, and they're larger freighters and probably some space yachts and stuff like that. And then there's, like, this ring of spaceports around the outside along the ground as you guys, like, land on that. And it's similar to how Yuri Pylos is operated, where, like, the doors open, you land, and then the doors close, and then pressure is built up in the docking bay, and then like the little green light outside comes on, and you guys know you're not gonna die.
Well,
and then
from
there's
that at least,
right? Yeah.
At this particular moment.
And then there's obviously a small tunnel that leads to the main port, basically.
Cool.